Hello and welcome to the Huddy Hui episode 124, and I hope you're enjoying your week. Following the first 15 final on Sunday, what a spectacular performance that was, and also bringing you the college sport winter finals here on Huddy Sports YouTube this month of August. Next week going to be a busy week, but our first guest tonight, he's just got to experience what the Olympics is really like. He was a referee at the Sevens, and he's going to share us some of the stories that he experienced over there at the Paris Olympics. Nick Hogan is our guest on the Huddy Hui tonight. Nick, many thanks for coming on to the Huddy Hui. Well done on your selection to the Paris Olympics. What was it like and the experience like there at the Olympics?
Evening, Brad. Firstly, thank you for having me on and to have a bit of a chat. Yeah, I mean, an unreal experience, to be fair. People talk about Olympics being once in a lifetime, and it truly was. I think from the moment sort of we arrived in Paris, you could tell sort of what a big event it was for the city. Everything sort of being decked out in Olympic gear and paraphernalia, and then sort of from there it just built and built and built. It was an interesting thing in terms of we were, for the men's tournament, the first couple of days was before the opening ceremony, and while the Stade de France was full and an unreal atmosphere, which I'll touch upon a little bit later, it didn't it hit home, I suppose, the day of the opening ceremony, and then the day after, when you could really tell that everything had swung into gear. Stade de France being next to one of the swimming arenas where they were doing the diving, I think it was, and also a couple of other things being in and around. And then we were lucky enough to have tickets to to be along the river for the opening ceremony. So yeah, when that sort of started, it went to another level, and you could really tell you were involved and in the middle of something special. And then I suppose the tournament itself, another level. I mean, sevens can be pretty special, and sort of people talk about sold out Hong Kong stadiums and Wellington back in the day, and Com Games a couple of years ago. But this was another level again, 70,000 or 66,000 or whatever it was at the Stade de France. Everyone in their seat for every game, and then another level again when France played. It was pretty special. I was lucky enough to AR France's first game, which was noisy, and then be in the middle for the second one when they played Uruguay, and could hardly hear yourself think. It helped that it was close, and Uruguay pushed them right to the last minute, and I think I yellow carded a French player with 30 seconds to go, so certainly the crowd let me know about that one. But yeah, it's the whole experience, and even being in the stands for the final when France won it, was just so special. And lucky enough also to then be there 3 days later when the Kiwi girls won gold, which again, as being a New Zealander and seeing us win our first gold of that Olympics, was really, really special as well.
Studied France, you mentioned as a venue. You mentioned what it was like to referee, particularly when the French were playing, but tell us about that venue. It's also where the athletics was played. Tell us what's it like compared to many of the other venues that you have got to referee in around the world.
Yeah, I'd probably compare it to the likes of a Nenville Park or a Maidstone, to be fair. No. It was. I think I hadn't been there myself, but I had heard from other people, the likes of the Kiwi boys who went over to the World Cup last year, and talking to other people who have been to the stadium. They say it's a pretty cool stadium. Obviously, a circular stadium, so you're not right in on top of the ground. But I mean, when you're out there, it definitely feels like, I think the fact that it was full as well, everyone is on top of you. They'd obviously done a great job of changing it up and making it look immaculate for the Olympics. And I think even compared to the Rugby World Cup, which I know they would have looked amazing for, this was probably another level given what the Olympics is and how it was being prepared for the athletics and obviously the glamour event, the 100-meter sprints. So yeah, from the training fields on the outside to the little gym we got to use to the sheds where we got to sort of station ourselves over for the 3 days. Yeah, it's amazing, and yeah, it was cool. You had a little bit of a walk to get from the tunnel out into the field, so that gave you sort of a good 10 seconds just to take it all in, which was a pretty cool thing to do as well.
Many of the athletes were complaining about the cardboard beds. Did you have one of those to sleep in?
No, we weren't lucky enough to stay in the village, unfortunately. Well, or fortunately, I'm not sure. We were in a little ibis, just 5 minutes walk from the stadium, and it was a typical French ibis. It was probably, I don't know, the size of a standard Kiwi bedroom, with a little bed, and unfortunately my aircon didn't work either, which I know there are a few people in the village where that happened as well, but my aircon didn't work, so it was a good 30-35 degrees every night, and interestingly enough, it was sort of, you could tell the Olympics was on. I think there was a little sign just outside which displayed the room rates, and €169 for a room, which is probably okay for Paris prices. I mean, 5 minutes from the Stade de France, 30-minute train ride into the middle of Paris, and then come day one of the actual Olympics, the sign changed to €500. So around about $1,000 New Zealand dollars for this room. I'm not sure that many people would pay that for the size of it, but I mean, and they were supposedly one of the cheapest in the area. So tell the Olympics was on.
Oh, unbelievable. Well, let's talk about you and refereeing at the Olympic Games. What was your first game of the tournament?
So in the middle, I was lucky enough to do France versus Uruguay, which was 8 o'clock on day one, and a pretty special game. Antoine Dupont sort of pulled out all his tricks and managed to help France get over the line. Their first two games were pretty scratchy, to say the least. And I think obviously they were one of the tournament favourites coming in, but after those two games, a draw with USA in their first one, and then that scratchy performance against Uruguay, I don't think anyone sort of predicted what they were going to do for the rest of the tournament.
And what was the top game at the Olympics you did? What was the highest level game you refereed?
So I was lucky enough to be appointed a quarterfinal between Ireland and Fiji. Another cracking game that went right down to the last minute. It went, I think, 3 minutes overtime. With Ireland trying to score, and Fiji gave away a few penalties, and then they just couldn't quite do it. Fiji obviously were in Olympic mode, haven't done a lot all World Series, and have underperformed by their own standards, and probably they're the first ones to say that. And then they arrived at the Olympics, and unlucky not to win it. I think they obviously just came up against a French side who were determined to win at home, and had 70,000 people cheering for them, which was obviously going to be always a tough one.
The structure of the tournament was rather interesting. New Zealand, of course, playing South Africa in pool play, and then they lost to them in the quarterfinal. Is it something they might need to look at changing, do you reckon, the structure or something like that? What's your thoughts?
It's always it can be a bit disappointing when someone plays someone in group play and then meets them so early again in the knockout stages. I think it's not too unusual now in sport when the I suppose what they call the best third place ends up coming through. New Zealand obviously got unfortunate with the fact that, fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know how you'd look at it, but they played so well in pool play that they topped their group, and topped it by such a decent margin that they did end up playing the that third place qualifier. Obviously, I think from a spectacle point of view, it would have been great to see them play someone else, but I mean, whether or not the result would have been different, you look at all 8 of those, or all 7 of the other teams in the quarterfinals, and the way they've all played this year, I don't think you could really bet your house on any of them going through. I think you'd look at how well South Africa actually played And they played, I suppose, the perfect tournament style rugby to get the bronze. They only qualified through the repechage, and then they obviously had those couple of losses in pool play, but they did enough to make quarterfinals, and then once you make quarterfinals, all bets are off. You only have to win a couple of games after that, and they did, and they won a bronze medal.
Yeah, that's the nature of sevens. It can be very unpredictable. It can go your way one day and different the next. Did you manage to go to some of the other events at the Olympics while you were over there in Paris?
Didn't get into any of the other events, so we spent a bit of time at the women's sevens in the 3 days after our event, which, as I said, was really cool to be there for the final and see New Zealand pick up that gold, and also see the likes of the USA pick up an unexpected bronze, and even Canada, the way they played in their semi-final against Australia, that was pretty special and pretty cool for the women's game as well. In terms of the other events, we couldn't get into any of the other events. They were pretty heavily sold out, but we spent a bit of time in and around Paris and just sort of soaking up the atmosphere. We went down to the Eiffel Tower and had a look at the couple of different venues that were down there. We were obviously lucky enough to be right on the river for the opening ceremony, which was pretty special to see all the boats come past, and the way I think that Paris did that compared to a normal opening ceremony or what we've got used to, where it's just done in a stadium and there's obviously a few performances, but then a couple of hours of teams walking in. This way was another level, and to see you sort of had entertainment going while teams were coming past the river, past you on the river, and them being on boats and different sizes of boats was quite interesting. But yeah, so a pretty cool, and I think the way Paris embraced their own city in terms of using existing structures and venues added another level to it. Like while we didn't actually go to the fencing, but to see the fencing in one of the historic old castles, and the horse riding out at the chateau. And I mean, controversially, I know it probably didn't go down as well as they would have liked it to, but the triathlon along the Seine and even the marathon along the streets of Paris, those things were pretty cool, and I think added to a different Olympic experience. Even though, I think I think it's an interesting question and going forward around spectacle versus ideal performance conditions. There's been a lot written about that, and I don't know which way I sort of go on that. But yeah, I think France as they do and Paris as they do, they certainly they like to do things their way, and they certainly put their own twist in it. And yeah, to say it was anything other than unique and special wouldn't be giving it its full credit.
Would you have swum in that river?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, given the fallout that's happened, probably not. Yeah, maybe depends. Maybe after a few French red wines, take as much. They said that the triathlon was the next day, and they assured me it was clean. But yeah, I guess it's probably it's just as easy to get E. coli from brushing your teeth over there, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, so, more than likely, probably other things too. So
probably not though.
No, probably not. No. What gear and memorabilia did you come back with from the Olympics?
We were lucky enough. We as volunteers got not volunteers, as match officials. Sorry, we got kitted out with the full match officials kit, the proper Paris stuff. So there was a lot. I'm not sure what stuff I'll wear again, but it was pretty special to wear at the time. But we got a couple of shirts and jackets and hats and even a pair of shoes, to be fair. And then we got our World Rugby on Field kit, which was quite special this year, and I think it's the first time rugby's ever done it. And I think we were as a group didn't know how it would go, but we actually got our names on the back of our shirts this year.
Oh wow!
For on field, which is obviously very different. And as I said, sort of don't know how everyone felt about it beforehand, but I think certainly afterwards it's quite a cool thing to have an actual match officials shirt, which then has your name on the back of it, and something sort of to remember the whole event by, and then some other goodies as well. A couple of the mascots, a couple of pins. We actually, a few of us went to the decathlon, which was close to the Stade de France, and sort of raided the memorabilia there in terms of a couple of pairs of socks that have the Olympic rings on them, and then got a few other T-shirts and things for the family.
Oh, terrific! Now, of course, you've been on the World Sevens World Series for a number of years now. What just this last season just being the 2023-24 structure change? So, how different was that, and how did you find that change of structure on the World Series?
I think one thing you noticed, I think, especially this year, was just how close those 12 teams were. We very rarely got blowouts. I think it was you went into every tournament, and while there was sort of Argentina got on a bit of a run, and then New Zealand got on a bit of a run towards the back end. Then obviously France took out what they called the grand final or in Madrid. You definitely rocked up to a tournament not knowing what to expect. I think you had 1 week where it was a France v New Zealand final in Vancouver. Then the next week, an Argentina versus New Zealand final in Vancouver, and then the next week, I think New Zealand might have missed the quarterfinals all together, and it was Great Britain v France, and both of those had missed the quarterfinals the week before. So you had a lot of that, and I think that was based on the fact that you just had 12 teams who were so competitive, and it certainly made it challenging to referee. Every game was pretty tight, and there was a lot of games that went down to the wire and overtime, and the interesting nature of you couldn't have a draw in round robin added another element to it as well, because of I suppose just how close it was, and it sort of made every decision a little bit more pressurised, which adds an element of enjoyment to it, knowing that there's so much pressure on your shoulders. And then I think that was seen again in Madrid, when I think I don't know what the actual number was, but I think just about every second game went to overtime or golden point. So different. Can understand the change in terms of trying to get it a bit more competitive, a bit more exciting. You feel for the 4 teams that missed out on this year, but then you see that through the Challenger Series, they're still able to compete with both Uruguay and Kenya fighting their way back into the series for this coming season, which will be another change. Obviously, sad for the Samoan and the Canadian programs who missed out. But the Challenger provides them an opportunity to play some good sevens, and then come to the grand final with the repechage and challenge those core teams. And they're desperate. I mean, it's obviously the difference between being a part-time and a full-time program.
Where did you first join the Sevens circuit, and how did that selection come about?
So I joined back, so it was 3 years ago now. I suppose they had the second Olympics, the 2021 Tokyo, which was meant to be 2020. And then post that, I was selected to be New Zealand's representative on the series, following James Dolman moving obviously into his full-time 15s career. And I had to wait a while. There was a couple of false starts just because it was still in and around the COVID times. There was still MIQ, so for me to actually go away, while it was okay for me to get out of New Zealand and get to countries that had no border limitations, the coming home part was always going to be the hard part.
Yeah.
And then actually, luckily enough, I sort of all that came down, and I got to debut in Singapore in, I think it was around March, April of, what was it, 2022. so went to Singapore and was lucky enough to get a shot there, and then from there we took a massive flight halfway around the world to Vancouver for the tournament the next week. Sort of we were in a group of 16, I think it was at that time, and knowing that sort of every tournament was a little bit of a dress rehearsal and a selection tournament before they refined the group down to 12 at the end of that year that they were going to take through to Paris. And that year was quite special. It included Com Games, it included a World Cup, so everything within that first year was quite cool to experience. But obviously needed to put the performance out there as well if I wanted to stay on.
How many games have you refereed in international sevens rugby so far?
Just on the World Series is 102, so that doesn't include the World Cup, the Com Games or the Olympics just been. We have our great mate Chris Jansen Sarge keeping all those stats for us, so I was lucky enough my last World Series tournament of this season, which was in Singapore. I was lucky enough to bring up 100 games there, which was quite a cool little milestone to tick off. It must be around, I have the number somewhere because Sarge sent them through, but I think it's around 120, 125 all up in sevens if you include those other tournaments.
And what's been your most memorable game on the sevens, your sevens career to date that you've refereed?
Oh, there's a few memorable ones, whether for good reasons or bad reasons. I think a couple of games at the Olympics obviously stand out. The French game in front of a packed house, yelling for France. My first game at the Olympics was obviously pretty special. To get a quarter final and have it be so closely contested was another. I was lucky enough this season to do a couple of finals, one in Cape Town and one in LA. Probably the one in LA was pretty special for me personally, just for a number of different reasons. And then there's a couple of others that they sort of stand out for random reasons. One in Vancouver a couple of years ago, a quarterfinal between Ireland and USA, which went to double overtime.
Oh wow!
And then which then eventually ended up with Ireland winning based on a pretty poor decision from me. But that's all right. You cop those and you move on. And then the first one is always special as well. That first tournament that I talked about before, my first game was Ireland versus Fiji. Ireland had never beaten Fiji and managed to get up in that game, and that was a pretty cool way to kick it off. And then later that tournament, I got to do a quarterfinal between South Africa and Fiji, which I think was just a real eye-opener to what international sevens is all about. You get to the knockout stages, you have two powerhouses. South Africa hadn't been beaten in a while. Fiji were just coming back onto the circuit and had all their main guns. And it was just one of those intense battles that sort of made you really sort of understand, I'm in the hot stuff, in the hot seat now. And I think that just sort of a little bit of a fire as well.
Do you get to work alongside the two New Zealand Seven teams in preparation for tournaments?
Yeah, I've had a reasonably good relationship with them, and lucky enough that New Zealand Rugby sort of invest in that and are really helpful in that respect. I try and get up to the Mount and work with them in their training blocks when they're at home. Go in for a couple of days and help sort of in terms of law interpretations and referee a few of their contact sessions and internal games, which I think for them can be quite helpful because I suppose it's coming from a standard of what we're looking to referee out in the middle in a World Series event, but also is incredibly helpful for me. It's pretty hard to get as a referee that sort of purposeful practice stuff. I mean, even when we go away, teams play a few warm-up games during the week, but they're never at full intensity. They're a bit of scrag stuff, which is great for sort of running lines and things like that, but you don't get that full contact or full ability to referee, I suppose, under that little bit of pressure. Whereas New Zealand, their matches before they select the side that they play, they almost try and replicate a tournament, and they'll play a couple of teams against each other at full noise, and that's pretty cool to referee. I think everyone knows how well respected New Zealand are on the world stage, and how good that team can be on their day. So it can be like when everyone's fighting for a spot to go away to the next two tournaments. You've almost got a semi-final or a World Series final type intensity going on, which for me is valuable, and I can say has greatly helped me be able to referee to the standard that I have been.
What are the challenges you find when you referee sevens for a number of months and then you've got to go back and referee 15s? What's the changes, and how do you readjust yourself in your refereeing style?
I think they are quite different, and they're very different games now. Obviously, there's about double the people on the field. So first thing is try and get out of the way, and that's just a positioning thing and an adjustment you can make quite mentally, and you can do a little bit of practice around that. But it is just the different balance of game flow as well. Sevens obviously is a bit quicker in and around the breakdown and requires a few more decisions to be made technically. So it's just adjusting there and understanding, I suppose, in a 15's perspective, what needs to be refereed and what can be sort of left alone a little bit to allow the game to flow a bit more over that 80 minutes. I think, and obviously then there's the added things of scrums and lineouts, which are another challenge to referee. But again, it's the prep work during the week is probably where you make your most change, and it's just a little bit of a mental shift. I think you can be quite deliberate in how you approach it, and in terms of switching into a mindset where you know what sort of game you're trying to referee, and how that then translates into your decision making and movements around the field.
Are you back on the circuit for 2024-25? Do you know yet?
Unsure as of yet. They haven't announced the squads, so waiting to see what might happen there. Not sure if the opportunity comes up, it would be something that I'd definitely consider doing, and like I personally really enjoy it, and enjoy the atmosphere of sevens. But I think the sevens is obviously in an exciting place. I think after the showcase that it put on in the Olympics, there may be some more opportunities around it, and hopefully it shows people what an exciting game on the field it actually is, and may start to get a few more people starting to tune in compared to maybe the not so much the brush it's been tarred with, but it's definitely probably been more promoted as the off-field side of things in the last few years. But the product on the field is getting better and better, and you are seeing, while it was definitely for his, obviously to help his country and the appeal of a home Olympics and the ability and the chance to win gold, the likes of Anton Dupont coming over and playing sevens can only help the game. And I think from even a 15's point of view, I think he's been quite outspoken in terms of how it's helped his game a little bit as well. Back to 15's and in terms of the jackal and the fitness side of it. You would have thought that an international 9 would be quite fit, but I know based on a couple of conversations how much he had to adjust, and how quick and tiresome he found the game once he played a couple of them early on. That's for sure.
Your refereeing journey started in the Wellington region. How did you get into refereeing, and who was your first Premier game in Wellington? Who were the teams, and where was it at?
I think you've only asked that question because you know it well, because I'm pretty sure you were one of the ARs.
I was,
yeah. I started back in, it would have been 2006, maybe 2007. I got into it in high school. I given up playing the game, but still loved the game. So I did a little bit of investigation. There was a friend of mine who caught the same school bus as me to Wellington Boys, who did referee, and I sort of asked him how he got into it. I went along to a couple of the Monday night meetings and sort of built from there, and really enjoyed, I suppose, the social aspect and the camaraderie of the referees at the time. And there was quite a few sort of about the same age, which I think did include yourself, Brad. That sort of Monday night was always a good little social occasion, the training and education side of it, but also the chance to sort of pop downstairs at the Petone Working Men's Club, play a couple of breaks of pool, and just sort of talk rugby or sport in general was quite enjoyable. And then, just chipped away at it. Did it sort of, I suppose, more from an enjoyment point of view, and then started to get more and more opportunities. And then, luckily enough, was given a premier game, which was Mara St Pat's in Rumataka at Evans Bay Park. I think it was a beautiful Wellington day with a southerly blowing through and probably all of 5 degrees. And I think MSP won the game 97 points to 5, I think it might have been.
Yeah, it was. I think it was, yeah.
I called the game 2 minutes early just so that they didn't get over the 100 mark. And built from there. And then, unfortunately, due to work and having to move cities, I think I'm now stuck on 97 premier games in Wellington. So at some point in the future, I might have to try and rectify that and do the 3 required to raise the bat. But I really enjoyed my time in Wellington, and owe a lot to a lot of people down there for how they brought me through the refereeing ranks and the experience I gained, and also the experiences I was lucky enough to be offered with different trips and things.
2019 was your last year. You officially were a rugby referee in Wellington. You got given the Jubilee Cup final. How special was that to get given the top club final in Wellington rugby?
Yeah, it was incredibly special. I think it's something when you get into the premier panel and sort of you start to work your way and get a bit of experience. It's something that you would like to do, but obviously generally when you're in that panel, there's a number of other strong referees around you, and I think at that time or the years before, we had the likes of Ben O'Keefe, we had Richard Gordon, Vincent Ringrose, those sort of referees who were nationally recognised, and obviously it's no secret what Ben's gone and done, but so it was always a goal, but you always knew that it was something you couldn't base your whole season on. So 2019, I think the stars aligned. Richard Gordon went away overseas somewhere. Ben O'Keefe was off refereeing international rugby or something else. So I was lucky enough to be given that final, and it was very special. Another one I'll remember fondly. It was a nice Wellington day that day out Petone Rec and Northby Wainui, Northern United getting up and winning their first title in a number of years. So it was a really, really cool experience. And I think while I joke about Wellington club grounds and things like that not being comparable to the likes of Stade de France or anything, but those finals are pretty special. You have, especially when you've got 2 club teams who are really well supported, packing out the ground at everyone's only sort of 2 meters away from the sideline. It's a different sort of atmosphere, but it's a very, very special atmosphere, and one you sort of definitely do remember fondly as you go along.
Based in the Hawke's Bay, as you mentioned, how have you found the style of rugby in the Hawke's Bay compared to Wellington at club level?
Interesting question. It's not too dissimilar, to be honest. I think club rugby these days is definitely, a lot of teams are playing more and more structured rugby. I think that's the influence of obviously the NPC teams coming in, and a lot of coaches are obviously cutting their teeth on club rugby to then move into wider representative rugby. So the structure is probably very similar. 90% of the time, I think potentially the only difference being this year, 90% of the time we have maybe slightly better weather, so the grounds are in slightly better condition, so it is a bit more conducive to open running rugby, and which is great and positive. I haven't refereed too many games up there that have been under sort of, I don't know, 40, 50 combined points. So teams are quite positive. They want to play fast open rugby and want to score points, which the conditions then let them do. Whereas obviously in Wellington sometimes not down to their own willingness, I suppose, but the likes of before it was done up at Kilburn Park or a Nenville or something like that can be pretty horrible to try and get any points out of. I remember not actually refereeing it, but watching, I think it was Jack Sargentina do a quarterfinal or a semi-final last or 2 years ago between Norths and OBU at Neville Park. The ball would literally only go 5 metres if it was kicked because it was so solid, and I think it might have ended up a 5-0 or something like that. So that's always that always obviously throws a different spanner into the works.
Member of the New Zealand national referees squad. What year were you first selected?
It's like trivia. You're testing me. 2016 officially, I think it was. 2015 in the wider training group, which involved going to the under-19s in Taupo, and then went into the what they used to call, I think, the development squad after that, and spent a bit of time there before I think potentially I might steal your next question, but then making my NPC debut in 2019.
You did steal my question. Let's talk about that one. 2019, Eden Park. Not many people get to referee on the Garden of Eden, or let alone make a debut in any sense. You got to make your NPC debut at Eden Park. Tell us about running out onto the Garden of Eden and your nerves when you went out there refereeing in New Zealand's domestic comp.
Yeah, it was. It was a very special experience, but a little bit of a backstory to it, I suppose. Is we got the appointments back in, I think it was July, and this was a game penciled in for September. It might have been early September, late August. Anyway, we got the appointments back in July, and the season before Auckland had been awful, I think. And so I think based on how you'd normally give out appointments, I don't think they picked it to be much of a competitive game, maybe a small competitive game, but not a hugely competitive game. And then as the season started, both Tasman and Auckland kept winning, and I was waiting most weeks for a phone call to say, hey, look, we know that you're building for this game and it will be your debut, but we're not going to put you on a top-of-the-table clash for your debut. But that phone call never came. So I think it was sort of 4 days before the game, which was a Friday night, as you said, in Auckland. I think I went, okay, well, I probably should start preparing for that game then, which I'd obviously done a little bit of, but it was sort of sunk in that it was real. And yeah, as you said, running out onto Eden Park, obviously New Zealand's sort of theoretical home of rugby, and we all know how strong the All Blacks are there to referee a game between Auckland and Tasman, who were top of the table at the time, was really special. I think you talk about nerves, and there were definitely a few nerves going into it. But yeah, I think sort of once you're able to run out there, take it all in, and then just try and remember it's just another game of rugby, and you're there generally because someone thinks you're good enough to referee it. So you just get out there and do what's got you there so far.
Tell us about how many NPC games you've done so far. What has been the most memorable NPC game?
I've done, I think it's around about the 15, 16 mark, so a little bit of a slow burn, and that's what happens, I suppose, when you have COVID chucked in the middle, and then obviously you've got the likes of the full-timers and things that they're obviously employed to referee rugby, so they're always around. But So about 15, 16, I think it is. And most memorable, I was lucky enough in the COVID season to be given a semi-final between Otago and Manawatu in the championship. So that's always obviously something to remember when it's knockout rugby. And obviously Manawatu at home versus an Otago side who ended up being very strong and going through to the final the next week. So that would definitely be one. The debut will always be special. And then the next year, I was lucky enough to be able to go back to Eden Park and referee Auckland v Canterbury, which is something that again will stick in the memories for a while to referee a game between such two fierce rivals.
What is the one game in your rugby refereeing career to date that you have learnt the most from?
Oh, there's been a few. There's been a few. There's a few club games which I probably couldn't even name what the teams were or how they actually. I probably could. There was an Aureus v MSP at the Polo Ground back in 2016, I want to say, where I learned a lot about how not to referee in terms of getting on the whistle far too much. And then again, a game I learned a lot from was one of my, maybe my fourth or fifth NPC game in Hawke's Bay, actually, Hawke's Bay Taranaki. It was just one of those really, really challenging games and came away just, absolutely mind-blowing and shattered. Definitely took a lot of lessons out of that around, which has definitely made me a better referee. And similarly in Sevens, there's been a lot of, you obviously in Sevens, you're lucky enough, generally you've got a couple of hours to bounce back from it, so you can take the learnings pretty quickly and then bounce back and sort of not feel as bad as potentially when you might take a tough day at the office in a 15 context and sort of got a whole week, sometimes a fortnight to stew on it. There's been a few. I think from a Sevens perspective, it was very early in my career, but I did a game between Australia and Samoa in the Commonwealth Games, a quarterfinal, which again was, I think, pressure and sort of an intensity I hadn't felt before, was something that I definitely didn't referee it badly. It wasn't a train wreck by any stretch of the imagination, but you sort of go away from it and you review it, and there's a lot of lessons that come out of it, and definitely ways that you can improve.
You've talked about you had a game up in Marston last week, Wairarapa Bush and Thames Valley. You've got an NPC game coming up this weekend. Who is it and where?
Saturday night I've got Southland and Taranaki down in Invercargill, which should be pretty interesting. Both sides obviously had a loss last week, but we're obviously have been pretty strong in the weeks before. I think Southland obviously had a good win against Otago, and Taranaki have been strong for the last couple of years. So I think they'll both obviously want to bounce back from last weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. And the weather forecast doesn't look too bad for Invercargill. I know a couple of people who have been pretty influential in my Sevens career who will say that Invercargill is pretty much the most tropical place in New Zealand, but we'll see how that goes this weekend.
Now, you have a young family, Nick, up there in the Hawke's Bay. How have they supported you in your journeys, especially when you're on the road and out of the country?
It's probably more how haven't they supported me. I think, to be on the road so much and travel, and I'm the one getting to go to all the cool places and do the fun stuff while my wife stays home and looks after our daughter. It's been challenging for them. I know that, and obviously spending so much time away as our girl sort of goes through, like obviously the developmental stuff that took from a newborn all the way through to what is she now, 19, 20 months old. They've been incredible. I think from Courtney letting me go to Dubai to referee in the Sevens a week after Isabella was born, through to the support they've provided me through this whole year and building into the Olympics and just through everything. It's sometimes you do feel selfish with how you sort of approach things, in terms of there's a lot of time dedicated to rugby, and as I said, we're the ones getting to go away and experience all the cool fun stuff. And I think I hopefully can tell and show them how much I appreciate it, and hopefully can support both of them in a different way in the future, just to sort of say thank you. But they've been incredible on this whole journey. The wife's the one kicking me out of bed to go and train, or and then dealing with the squawking baby when she wakes up, and but they've been massive support. And from the cool little videos you get of your little girl when she can start to recognise you on TV and say daddy, and the little FaceTimes, I think very lucky with technology these days to be able to sort of talk through video chat and still be able to have those connections is pretty cool.
That is awesome stuff. Speaking about awesome things, what advice would you pass on to someone wanting to take up the whistle to referee?
Just do it. It's a very enjoyable thing once you get into the middle of it. I think the support that referees have these days, well, the support that I know that I had in Wellington and also in Hawke's Bay, and I think you'd say the same when you first start. There's a lot of people who are keen to get around you and help you and give you an awesome experience. We obviously, rugby needs referees, and there's generally a chronic shortage of them wherever you go. And I think the other thing I'd say is that there's just so many options. Even if you don't want to go the whole way or get to Premier Rugby, or you just want to give something back, there's so many different levels of rugby, and most of the time, like obviously abuse and all the nasty stuff can be highlighted, but a lot of the time, if you turn up to a social game of rugby, whether it's an under 85s or a president's grade or a reserve grade game, and you're there to referee them, they're stoked to have a referee. They're stoked to have someone who's impartial and can run around and referee, and they might not agree in the moment, but hey, I know there's a lot of people who don't agree with referees in the heat of the moment. When you're under pressure, but as long as you can sort of walk off the field, and most of the time they'll say thank you. That's the cool part of it. And I think for me personally, a lot of my good mates I've made through refereeing. So I'd just say if anyone's interested, just give it a go, and don't feel too much pressure with it. I think everyone thinks the pressure is on making all the right decisions, but a lot of the time it's just about at least getting out there and giving the blokes or girls on the field, ladies on the field, sorry, a game of rugby and being refereed from a neutral point of view.
What's your future ambitions with your refereeing? What do you want to go on and do?
I think it's just take up any opportunity that comes along. I think I'll continue refereeing as long as I enjoy it, and I'm loving it at the moment. I whether it's a club game on a Saturday afternoon or Sevens or MPC, I think the enjoyment factor's there. I get excited for all the games that I get to be involved in. It's great to be involved in rugby in a country that supports it so well, and then I guess I'm lucky enough. Obviously, I get the travel of the world, or have had the travel of the world on top of that. But I think with everything that rugby's given me in the past 3 years, or even the past, I suppose, 10, 15 years through refereeing, I owe it a little bit as well to continue to give that service and, as I said, sort of help community rugby out and keep enjoying it, and provide opportunities for younger people to come through as well. I think now that sort of got through through the Olympic side of things and looking ahead, and definitely we'll look to sort of give back a little bit more in terms of coaching and mentoring and that refereeing space to help anyone else who's coming through, and just if they want advice or if they want someone to yarn to about refereeing, more than welcome to do that.
Nick, it's been fantastic having you on tonight. Next time I'm up in the Hawke's Bay, we'll have to go to Craigie Range again sometime. So, but good to catch up with you, and all the best this Saturday down in Southland for your NPC game.
Thanks, Brad. No, it's been very enjoyable chatting. I'll take you up on that offer of Craigie Range. We could try somewhere different as well, or we could try a few even.
There's a few different places. Yeah, we haven't been to all of them yet.
A few good red wines around the Hawke's Bay region that I'm sure that you could delve into.
No doubt.
But yeah, no, it's been very enjoyable, and thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Cheers, Nick. Have a good rest of your evening. Take care.
Thanks, Brad.
That is Nick Hogan, who's just come back from the Olympics. What a great chat to catch up with him, in particular his rugby journey to date. Now, speaking about rugby journeys, we're into the Hurricanes semi-finals in the lower part of the North Island, and we're lucky enough, we're going to be hitting the road up to Palmerston North this Saturday, Huddy Sports. We're going to be bringing you live from 1 o'clock at Palmerston North Boys High School, Palmerston North Boys versus St. Pat's Silverstream. And this the winner of this will go through to the Hurricanes final next weekend. The other semi-final is between Fielding and Gisborne. That game will kick off at 1 p.m. on Huddy Sports YouTube. So our coverage of that will start from 12:45, and we're hopefully going to get this one off the ground as well. We're going to try and bring you the National Under 85 club competition match between Old Boys University Scallywags versus New Plymouth Boys High School Old Boys from the Hutt Recreational Ground at 2 p.m. So we'll keep you informed about that one, but we definitely are bringing you Palmerston North Boys High School versus St. Pat's Silverstream from Palmerston North Boys. That is going to be a spectacular game. That has been the Huddy Hui for tonight. We'll be back next Wednesday for our 125th episode. I'm Brad Hudson. Ciao for now.